Lastly, as promised, a note tonight about the continuing Rush Limbaugh, Sandra Fluke controversy and some pretty desperate false equivalency. Some of it has been directed at me, and I think it deserves a hearing here. The false equivalency has been fronted by one of the House-tamed liberals on Fox News, a supposed Democratic strategist who hasn't been able to get a job as a Democrat since 2004. As Limbaugh himself now claims he was thinking like a Democrat, the argument reverberating around the right-wing echo chamber is its standard defense for anything. Somebody else on the other side once did fill in the blank too and did it worse, so when our guy did it, it was less heinous. For instance, I have literally read modern-day conservatives claim that they should never be criticized on racial issues because the Ku Klux Klan was founded by a Democrat. The answer to that, incidentally, is that the Klan was formed in 1865 by some Southern traders. And if we're going to treat that kind of distant history as relevant, perhaps we should note also that not one of the founding fathers was a member of the Republican Party, nor did any Republicans fight in the Revolutionary War. Obviously, that's because the Republican Party wasn't founded until 1854. But I digress. In the desperate spin on Limbaugh's behalf, I've been accused of using similar language regarding conservative bloggers Michelle Malkin and S.E. Cupp. Firstly, there is an overall quality of apples to oranges here. Both of those people were veterans of this country's political dialogue, about whom I made one comment each. They were not private citizens intending a brief dip of the toe into the cultural pool, only to find themselves dragged into the deep end by day after day of searing, deliberate, personal, and indefensible attacks by Rush Limbaugh. In the case of Ms. Cupp, nearly a year ago, she was ranting about the evils of Planned Parenthood in what few of us recognized was part of the start of the assault on that organization. I tweeted, "On so many levels, she's a perfect demonstration of the necessity of the work Planned Parenthood does." The Fox token non-conservative, Kirsten Powers, transformed this into, quoting her, "Keith Olbermann has said that conservative commentator S.E. Cupp should have been aborted by her parents," which is a bald-faced lie on her part. In fact, as I wrote in a subsequent tweet, I never mentioned abortion. I said her parents could have used counseling by PP, Planned Parenthood, rather than get the results they did. My point was that 97% of what Planned Parenthood does is health care, family planning, birth control, counseling, and the like, and that Ms. Cupp's parents obviously could have used somebody's help in determining how they could improve their chances of raising a well-adjusted child, or whether they should have had children at all. Was it a nice thing to say? No. Was it sexist? Hardly. Because of that initials thing, for a long time, I had no idea S.E. Cupp was a woman. And the suggestion that parents shouldn't have been parents, or that they did a lousy job raising a child, that's not gender specific. I would have said the same thing about a man. But my favorite allegation against me is the claim that I am a misogynist because I once called Michelle Malkin, quote, a mashed up bag of meat. I actually had to laugh the other day when I read on Twitter, and not for the first time, that I'd called Michelle Bachmann a mashed-up bag of meat. I didn't call either of them a mashed-up bag of meat. In October 2009, Ms. Malkin attacked an author named Charisse Carney Nunez, implying she was responsible for elementary kids singing a song about President Obama in New Jersey, something Malkin called, as if this were fact, indoctrination. Within hours, Ms. Carney Nunez, who in fact had nothing to do with the singing, was receiving hate-filled voicemails and death threats. I said Ms. Malkin was animated by, quote, mindless, morally bankrupt, knee-jerk, fascistic hatred, without which Michelle Malkin would just be a big mashed-up bag of meat with lipstick on it. That doesn't imply violence against women. It implies, rather clearly, that there's no human being inside Michelle Malkin anymore, just meat. It also isn't my line, exactly. One mistake I make as a broadcaster is that I often assume viewers know the same cultural references that I do, no matter how obscure they might be. The reference to a big mashed-up bag of something is from the brilliant HBO series Eastbound and Down. Here is the exact scene.
Hey, you're never going to believe who's sitting in front of me. Kenny Powers. No. Yeah, it's him. No, hell no, he looks like he looks like a big bag full of mashed up.
The last bleep covers a reference to an orifice, a big bag of mashed up orifice. For the record, in the next scene, the Kenny Powers character socks the guy who called him that. By the time I said that if it weren't for hatred, Michelle Malkin would just be a big mashed-up bag of meat, I had used that line on NBC's Football Night in America at least 6 times, and would use it at least 6 times more. We would show highlights of an NFL player after a sack or a big hit, a guy in a world of hurt, and I'd say, he looks like a big mashed-up bag of Tom Brady. You can argue that saying that somebody would be a big mashed-up bag of something is uncouth, but it doesn't imply violence. And if you say it about 12 guys and 1 woman, it isn't misogynistic. But this brings me to a larger point. I think Rush Limbaugh actually has done some good work here. I think the previous standard for offensive remarks about women has proven too low. So low that it took a week, 2 station cancellations, and 45 sponsor bailouts before Limbaugh even realized he was near it, let alone that he had crossed it by 45 miles. So I want to raise that standard. I think from now on we all need to be extra vigilant and dial the filter up a few more notches. So in neither case were my remarks misogynistic, nor were they things I did not say or could not have said about men. Nevertheless, they have apparently distressed Ms. Cupp and Ms. Malkin, and I apologize to them both. As I did after Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was shot last year about refraining from using any kind of language that was or seemed violent, I'm going to try to raise my standard about not using gratuitously abusive remarks about women and men. In fact, I'm going to suspend the worst persons segment again, possibly permanently. I challenge all political and cultural commentators to raise their standards too. And no, I'm not holding my breath on that. Good night.